Okay, hello everybody. How you guys doing? My name is Mark. This is Why I Hate the World. Have a lot of stuff to talk about today, so we're going to basically do some commentary on the last week of drama in the House of Representatives here in the United States. And then, if we have time, we'll make fun of a guy named Alex Stein, who's a total douchebag. So yeah, for those of you guys out there who live in other countries, it may astonish you to know that the government of the United States is extremely dysfunctional. I mean, I know we look like the perfect country and all, right? Where the streets are where the streets are paved with gold and shit like that. But yeah, just a little dysfunctional, I would say. Kind of to the point of where there's so much bickering and infighting, even between people of the same political party, that it's a miracle that anything gets done. It's really is a miracle that our country is not just locked in partisan deadlock forever, and that the only time things ever actually do seem to get done is when it benefits the elected officials directly. I don't think this is a fault of democracy or our system of government. Well, I guess, yes, maybe our system of government. I think that rather our system of government has been perverted over the last, well, I guess since the day it was founded, really. And it's kind of always been set up in such a way that it benefits not only the rich and the powerful, but that the people who are elected get to directly benefit themselves. And that's kind of just what it seems to me. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love democracy, and I would die to defend democracy if it came down to it. I prefer not to, but I would. I think democracy is an institution which, for better or worse, is the best way to govern, the most just way of governing anything and anybody. That's what I personally believe. That doesn't mean that our system of democracy is the best in the world, because it obviously isn't. It is obviously extremely flawed and allows for too many people who are invested in the system and who have large amounts of money to gain too much power. And that's a breakdown of basically what happened with the last week here. So, before we jump into that, though, I want to kind of show you guys what I've been working on. This is our little witch character with a mask. Now that I look at it, her head is a little lopsided, but it's far too late to do anything about that. I'm not gonna. Well, maybe afterwards, if it annoys me too much, maybe I'll make her little mask more symmetrical. It's now that I look at it, yeah, it's kind of lopsided. I cheated. I did a bunch of work on this during the week. Filled in some stuff in the background, put the bookcase back, did some coloring, stuff like that. Got rid of the little table that was on the side there because it was stupid looking and ugly, and that kind of thing. So now we're just sort of doing some remaining coloring, and I don't know. Reason why, because because I get bored with stuff. If it goes on for too long, I'm gonna get bored with it, and then I'll never finish it. So that's why I wanted to work on it. Anyhow, but we'll just be kind of putting in some lighting and stuff, and then I put some little bowls and stuff in the background here. We got to fill all that in, so be working on that today. So for those of you guys out there, what the hell happened? Right. Well, usually this is how it goes. Okay, so we have, for speaking, because I know I have some viewers that live in Canada and stuff like that. Although they probably, to be honest, you guys probably know more about my government than I do. I tend to find that people who live in other countries that have an interest in American politics are usually very well informed when it comes to American politics and when it comes to our system of government in general. They tend to keep themselves very well informed, and it's because the United States is sort of, has influence, right? And so it behooves you if you live in, say, Western Europe or Canada or Mexico or something, to maybe not be completely, you don't have to be an expert, but it behooves you to pay attention to what's going on in the U.S. because it could affect you through one way or another, and that's something that a lot of people that tell me that live in, other countries tell me about American politics. That's why they all kind of know what's happening. But just to sort of recap for any of you guys out there that are interested and maybe wasn't keeping up with the story. In the United States, we have two branches of Congress, right? We have the House of Representatives and then the Senate, right? And the way it works is that the Senate gets two representatives per state, so there's 50 states, so there's roughly 100 representatives in the Senate. And then in the House of Representatives, you get it's based on proportion, right? Although there was a law passed to prevent like a certain limit from up to a limit, because if they didn't do that, then California would have like 100 representatives and would just dominate everything, which is kind of bullshit and gets rid of the entire intent of having a House of Representatives. But I understand it's got to be fair, whatever, right? It's just funny how when they try to make things fair, it's always to limit the power of blue states. I don't know how that works. Anyway, so it's supposed to be representative. So you get representatives depending on how many of your population. So, for example, California has around like 52 representatives, while Wyoming has one, and it's because California has, 40 million people, and Wyoming has 500,000. So that's how that works. And there are in the House of Representatives. Thank you for joining, whoever it is that just joined. Appreciate it. There is in the House of Representatives lots of little weird rules, lots of little archaic kind of rules that they set up in order for the House to govern itself, right? A lot of which is kind of bullshit. A lot of these rules that they set up have nothing to do with the Constitution. They're not spelled out in any law, stuff like that. So this has to do with things like, for example, the filibuster rules, for example, is a rule. Like in the Senate, that's a rule where in order to get cloture so that you can vote on something, you have to have a certain number of senators, right? And basically it's a way that they can abuse the rules so that something never comes to a vote. So even though the way it should work, the way it's spelled out in the Constitution, for example, in the Senate, is that the majority of the senators vote on something, then that passes. That's what it actually says in the Senate, right? But they created this rule saying, well, we can't like you have to have a debate before you vote on something, and then you have to have a certain number of senators to agree to end the debate, right? Which is at this point in time 60 senators. You got to have 60 senators to agree to end the debate, which is total fucking bullshit, right? So basically, it's a backwards way around for the minority party in order to prevent a vote on any legislation that they don't like. So if there's, for example, a legislation to give health care to infants, right, and the Republicans don't like it, but they're the minority party and they don't have enough people to stop it, then they can use the cloture vote in order to prevent it from even ever coming up for a vote, so they'll never have to vote for it. And that's something that happens all the time, constantly. And here's the thing about it is that, well, you go, well, how come, they don't get rid of that rule, right? Like, so, for example, the Republicans did that all through the Obama years in order to stop pretty much all of Obama's agenda from being passed, anything past the first 2 years. Once there was a Republican-controlled Senate, they never passed anything, right? And they would, and they would use it to hold up spending bills and to, stuff like that, and they always have these fights over funding the government every year, shit like that, blah blah blah, right? And you would think like, okay, well, once the why wouldn't the Democrats, right, if they're in control of the Senate, why wouldn't they get rid of that rule, right? Because they can do it. The thing is that every year these rules, they vote on what's called a rule package, right? And basically that's a package, that's a the agreed upon rules that everyone's going to use, you know. So they could remove it anytime they want. And the thing is, if you're the majority party, you get to decide what those rules are. So at any time, the majority party can say, okay, no more filibuster, right? That can happen at any time. There's a little bit of orange up there. It's pissing. You see that little bit of orange right there? It's driving me crazy. I know that has nothing to do with nothing. Is it here? No. It's is it there? I think yeah, that's what it is. I think what I need to do is just find the line work. God, I got too. See, that's the problem. Like, this is why I hate working with like 50,000 layers, because you lose track of like on which layer shit is on. There, perfect. Okay, that was just driving me crazy. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so you would say like, well, how come the majority party doesn't just decide to change the rules so that next time, for example, there is no filibuster, right? Stuff like that. And the thing is, it's because they know that these things go like political power runs in cycles, so that it's very well possible that in 2 or 3 years, after the next election, they may end up as the minority party, and they don't want to lose that power. And that's the whole reason why, for example, in this last Senate session, right, that they refused to get rid of the filibuster, even though the Republicans were using the filibuster to block everything, right? Because they know that eventually they're going to lose the Senate and they'll be in that situation. And if they remove it, then that means, that means when the Republicans are in the majority, they won't have a way of stopping anything that gets passed, which is horseshit. Because here's the thing, like I said, none of these things are in the Constitution, right? The way it should work is how the Constitution says it should work, right? And if one party becomes, the majority, and they should get to pass their agenda, that's how it should work. And if I say this, and then like, okay, and then the Republicans become the majority, and they get to pass their agenda. Yeah, that's how it should work. That's democracy. And it would suck, it'd be bullshit, but if the Republicans took the House and the Senate and the presidency and got to pass a bunch of shit, it would be horrible, it would suck, they would do lots of things that would damage people and fuck up people's lives. That's democracy. That's the consequences of not voting. So if you believe in democracy, if you believe that people should have the ability to self-govern, right, should have the ability to influence their government. I don't want to say self-government, because it's not, the system we have is not self-government. It's a representative republic. So if you believe in, but still, the ability for people to influence their government, to elect officials, and then to have those officials enact laws on their behalf, if you believe in that, if you believe that people should have a say in how their government runs, then you need to support it, even when the shit that you don't like, the people you don't like, get in power. And, now I know that's dangerous, because we're dealing with one political party that's like a fascist party now at this point. The Republican Party in the United States are a fascist party, which we will be talking about in this stream later on, when we talk about their agenda that they have for 2023, right? For the next, the 116th Congress or whatever it is, right? That's what we're on now. Yeah, it is. It is very much a fascist party, and people will turn around and say, well, now you have these rules. That's one way of exploiting these rules, is a way of preventing the worst excesses. Republicans want to pass a law that says, everyone whose skin is too dark is no longer a citizen or some shit. Right? You can use these rules and stuff in order to stop that. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm not denying that's there. I'm not denying that they're a tool in the shed that you can use to stop oppression or fascism or whatever. But I am saying that that's not how it should be. It shouldn't have to be like that. The way it should work is that people should see what happens when the wrong people get elected and then vote accordingly. And unfortunately, our system is not perfect. I mean, that's how it would work in a perfect system. That's how it's intended to work. It doesn't work that way because our system is not only not perfect, but it is corrupted by people like Kevin McCarthy, right? So that's what the Speaker of the House, it's a rule. There's a rule that says, right, that they adopted. The rule says that there has to be a majority of the vote, in order for someone to be the speaker, right? They have to get a majority of votes. Now that doesn't mean plurality, because what's been happening over the last week is that Kevin McCarthy is the representative from California, by the way. Everybody says California is super liberal, all this shit. He comes from California's 20th district, right? And as you'll see, Kevin McCarthy is conservative as hell. So where exactly is the 20th district? 20th district, California. Probably out in some fucking rural area. Yeah, okay. So California's 20th district is like fucking Death Valley, Bakersfield, Fresno. Right? So it's basically, if you look at a map, it's to the west of, like a little bit south and to the west of San Francisco. So, kind of, yeah, he's representing the boonies, is where he's at. In fact, the district lines go right around Bakersfield, so very little of it. It's like he's representing like the outskirts. So, for those of you guys out there who don't know, the cities in California are very liberal, right? They're the reason why California turns blue all the time. The rest of California is very much like rural areas, right? Nobody lives out in the rest of California, like, outside of the cities, right? Where you have Los Angeles, San Francisco, Sacramento, San Diego, right? There's just small towns and shit all over the place. Like, all the rest of the population of the state doesn't add up to the population that lives in these cities. And it's very, very conservative. Let's not forget, I mean, California is what put Ronald Reagan in the White House. Ronald Reagan was the governor of California back in the day. Stuff like that. So it's like, the phenomenon of California being like a super deep blue state is relatively new, maybe, well, not new, but, the past maybe 25 years or so. It wasn't always like that. There were times when California was red, when it was elected, Republicans, Pete Wilson and shit. He was another Republican that was, governor for years and years. And I mean, we elected Arnold Schwarzenegger, Republican governor. So it's like, yeah, California is only blue in so much as its cities are blue, right? The rest of it is very, very, very conservative. Like, it's like Texas driving around. There's like people with, I'm not even kidding, people with like fucking, the stars and bars, like Confederate flags and shit in their driveways, stuff like that, if you go out into the rural areas. So that's where, and then you got like Orange County where all the fucking rich people live, shit like that. Those are very red. So that's one of the areas that Kevin McCarthy is coming from. He's coming from this fucking like super red kind of like, middle of nowhere rural desert areas where like, there's just like farms and farms being, held up with water that's pumped from fucking Colorado and shit like that. Right? Because it's all desert out there. Anyway, so, yeah. And he basically tried all throughout this week, Kevin McCarthy was tried all throughout this week to become Speaker of the House, because he has been trying to become the Speaker of the House for years and years, and he doesn't understand that nobody likes his ass, because he is a scumbag. Kevin McCarthy is a fucking giant scumbag, let's everybody not forget he is literally like, because there's been this big fight over the last week between him and who they call the Freedom Caucus, right? The Freedom Caucus is essentially the MAGA people, right? People like Lauren Boebert, Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, although she supported him. She actually supported him during this little fiasco. But still, that's basically who was keeping him from becoming speaker, right? And he tried 15 votes, right? The first 14 failed. Now, the reason why this is a big deal is because usually coming into the a new Congress, whatever political party is taking over has its shit together and is able to just elect a speaker the first day, right? Usually, because they're political parties. They're not just 452 people coming in, or however many representatives there are. I think there's something like 452. Um, there's not that many of them. Or no. There's 400 and goddamn 438. That's how many there are, right? There's not usually they know who they're who they're gonna elect before it starts, and they just hit the ground running because they want to enact their agenda. Well, what happened this time? The Freedom Caucus got in Kevin McCarthy's way. And as far as I could tell, I can't tell why they don't like his ass. I think what's going on is that Kevin McCarthy threw Donald Trump under the bus. That's what I think. That's the reason why. Now, I'm not sure. And you could find interviews where they never straight out say it. They always say shit like, we need to keep our people accountable, blah, blah, blah. Any interview I've seen with Matt Gaetz or Andy Biggs or Lauren Boebert or whoever, they always say some shit like, they always sort of dance around the issue and like give some bullshit reason like, well, our people want, blah, 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 small government, blah, 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 wokeism, blah, 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 trans kids, whatever, right? They always say some shit like that. But the reason why I think they don't like Kevin McCarthy so much is because, once again, Kevin McCarthy threw Donald Trump under the bus. If you remember, Kevin McCarthy was, famously, like, went on TV, and said, like, basically blamed Donald Trump for the January 6th insurrection, right? Of course, he came back, like 2 or 3 days later and flew down to flew down to God damn it, Mar-a-Lago, excuse me. Flew down there a few days later and very, very famously prostrated himself before Trump and allowed Trump to penetrate his anus in order to, apologize for daring to have integrity. Right, he very, very much famously did that. Hey, there's our power crystal. We need to put some shine on the thing here. But first, I'm going to draw a bunch of symbols and stuff in this little magic carpet circle thingy. So let's do that. And I think that's what it was. I think that they feel that Kevin McCarthy could have done more. Because he was like feuding with Trump and stuff over that for a few days, and before he completely capitulated like a bitch. And they've been telling their constituents, Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert and Matt Rosendale of Montana and a few others that that they would never support McCarthy. And so now they're making good on that campaign pledge. So late last night, because this is Saturday morning that I'm recording this, very late last night, Friday night of the 7th, or the 6th, excuse me, McCarthy finally clinched it. And what happened was basically, according to the rumors, there was some Republican from the East, from like New York or something, who essentially threatened all these people, threatened Matt Gaetz, threatened Lauren Boebert, and said that if you don't get behind him, we're going to vote for Hakeem Jeffries, who was the Democratic, right, the Democratic um, nominee for speaker, right? Because what it is the way it works is that anybody can get up and nominate anybody, right? And all through this, for a few, like just fucking around, Matt Gaetz, for example, nominated Donald Trump, and then they would nominate, Jim Jeffries, and they would nominate some other people who weren't even running for it, stuff like that, in order to just fuck up Kevin McCarthy, right? And the guy on, the Democrat side is Hakeem Jordan, who was Nancy Pelosi's sort of successor, right? And basically, what it was that the Democrats were voting for him, and they were consistent and in lockstep, the way that an organized political party that has its shit together does. And so he was getting 212 votes, right? Whereas the first time, actually, in the first round of voting, he got more than Kevin McCarthy. McCarthy only got something like 200, right? And the thing is, well, you would think, oh, he should have won. He got the most votes, right? He should have won. Wasn't that the majority of the votes? Unfortunately, no. It was the majority. It was a plurality of the votes, and that's not how voting for speakership works. You have to have a majority of representatives, not a plurality, which is bullshit. Because see, if that was, say, the American election, that's how he would have won. He would have won. You can win, say, like the election for the presidency. You can win that by plurality, right? If you get the most electoral college votes. That's what happened in '92, I believe, when Ross Perot ran, split the election. So stuff like that happens, right? But not for the House speakership. For the House speakership, it's got to be majority, and that is not in the Constitution, right? That's another one of those House rules that the party in power put into power so that they'll remain in power, right? So it's specifically for this situation. So that was one of those House rules that they put in for this situation because they knew that there may be squabbling, and they didn't want the minority power party to take power, even though they had the actual votes. So it's like you can always kind of tell when a rule is bullshit because it goes against democratic principles. The principle that of very basic democratic principle of whoever gets the most votes wins. You can always tell that your rule is designed by people who are just like maintaining power when it goes against that principle. So that's fucking bullshit. So anyway, that was the reason why they threatened. They got threatened with an actual Democratic speaker winning. Because how awesome would that be? How awesome would it have been? Actually, no, that doesn't look right. If, for example, the Republicans had the majority in the House and somehow a Democratic speaker still got elected. That would have been the most humiliating thing. Seriously fucking awesome as hell, humiliating thing ever. And it's really, really too bad. You know what? This needs to be in dark blue. It shouldn't be black. So we're going to have to redo these. This should be that dark blue. Okay. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. It would have been cool. And what happened was that the Republican opposition voted present. And somehow that reduces the number of votes needed. So, I don't know how that shit works. But if you vote present, then you need a smaller threshold in order to win. It seems weird, backwards, and nonsensical to me that should count. But it does. So Kevin McCarthy unfortunately became the Speaker of the House. And we can finally get a move on with our government. Because for 5 days because of this little bickering, we didn't have a House of Representatives. Now you may think oh, well, that's not a big deal. That doesn't matter, right? Who cares? Let them fight. Get the popcorn or whatever, right? It is not good ever to have a tied up, frozen government like this, right? Because things can happen. Imagine if Thursday, for example, there was a 9/11 type event, right? Just imagine if that, and like, this is why it's not a good idea to ever have, like, say, you don't want to have these types of constitutional crises. You don't want to have gridlock in your government, right? You don't want to have missing leadership because no leadership is worse than shitty. Like having shitty leadership is better than no leadership, and that's what was happening right there. There was no leadership, right? So like this another comparable situation to this is a government shutdown, you know, which seems to happen every time we have like opposing political parties in charge of certain branches of the government. The government always ends up getting shut down for one reason or another over, essentially spending, right? This is why you don't want to have stuff like that because it first off it shows like how, weak your current government is, right? And what if at that time there was a crisis, right? What if, for example, on Thursday, the Russians decided to invade another country? Let's say they invaded Poland, you know. I don't know, hypothetical. You may say, yeah, that'll never happen. Well, maybe, maybe not, you know. Let's say they did. I mean, Poland has been supporting Ukraine, right? Let's say they decide to do that. And they go, well, the American government, they may decide that, hey, the American government is feckless and frozen and won't be able to respond in time because they don't even have leadership, right? Let's say that there was a giant, like another 9/11. Let's say terrorists blew up another building or, you know, something like that. Caused mayhem in, let's say, Philadelphia this time or Washington, D.C. You know, let's say planes somehow hit the White House, even though that shit would never happen. But, and it did. Kill the president, right? Kill the president and the vice president. Well, the Speaker of the House is supposed to be the third in line. So let's say that happened. Or let's not even say it was a terrorist attack. Let's just say that there was a plane crash, right? Or that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden were at an event somewhere and there was a gas leak and the fucking building explodes and they die, right? I mean, shit happens, right? And then the Speaker of the House is now the President of the United States, right? What if that happened on Wednesday of this week? Can you imagine the fucking chaos that would be going on right now, right? Do you think that Matt Gaetz and Matt Rosendale and Bob Good of Virginia, do you think those guys would have like said, okay, you can be president now? Kevin McCarthy. No. Right? Maybe, I don't know. I don't think they would because then the stakes become super high, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about here, right? That's what the Speaker of the House is. And that's why it's a very bad idea to not, you know, have your shit together because it can have real consequences. Now, I know I'm just what I'm describing is like, a fantasy scenario that's very unlikely, but we've seen stranger happen. I mean, especially over the last, decade or so. Right? So, this is why, this is why it's bad. It's bad for all of us when these guys bicker like this and our government comes to a crawl, right? You don't want that in your country. So anyway, the main opposition to McCarthy came from, there were about 19 or so senators, right? There, these are magic symbols. So I'm putting magic symbols on the carpet here. Okay. Trying to make them not look too much like English. And then after the first couple of votes, right, it went all the way down to kind of a core six. And those six being Andy Biggs of Arizona, excuse me, Lauren Boebert of Colorado, Matt Gaetz of Florida, Bob Good of Virginia, Matt Rosendale of Montana, and Representative-elect Eli Crane of Arizona. And these were the main opposition that held out all the way to the very end. These are the guys who voted present, right? Like they think that their constituents won't be able to well, actually they're probably right in that respect. I was about to say like they think their constituents wouldn't understand that, but they're probably right, and their constituents probably won't understand. They're probably going to get away with that. Um, but anyway, these were the guys that held out until the very, very, very end. And even before all of this happened, in order to get most of the Republicans on his side, McCarthy had to give some major concessions, right? So what exactly were those concessions, right? Because it's kind of, once we hear this, you'll sort of understand that he's going to be, he'll be speaker, but he's not going to have very much in the way of power. He's just going to be sort of rubber stamping stuff. And let's see. So these are the concessions that McCarthy had to give, right? So they're going to hold votes on consecutive spending bills, right? So instead of having a huge package where they fund the government at the end of every year, like what they have is called an omnibus bill, where they take all of these little funding bills and they put them all into one big thing and vote on that, right? And instead of that, they're going to have little tiny bills that they will, pass one at a time. So what does that mean? So that means that they're going to fund first the military, then they're going to fund, something else, and then they're going to fund, discretionary spending or whatever. So that's basically the way they're going to do it, is one at a time, right? This circle, it's not in the middle. It's going to bug me. This circle right here is not in the middle. It's pissing me off. I gotta do something about that. Do I even really need a circle there? I don't know if I actually need a circle there. Is that on? What layer is that on? Is it here? This circle. I'm looking for. God damn it! I have too many layers. Bookcase, no. Fire, bat, witch. Fire. It's not that. It's not that. Is it on this one? Damn it, now I need to just go through every layer until I find it. It's not that. Here it is. Okay. Layer 4. Yeah, let's just toss this circle. We don't actually need this right here. Anyway, so basically that means that anytime they want to fund something, they have to pass another bill to do it, and you might be thinking, well, that's not a bad thing, right? Well, yes, because it's going to be a major pain in the ass, and it will allow Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert and all these other fucking yahoos lots of control over what gets funded, right? So now, instead of having one big fight, that can shut down the government, they can just decide, oh, we don't like this program. Oh, this program gives money so that people who are brought over as small children over the border in this country can stay here. The Dreamer program or whatever that's called, the Dream Act. Oh, we don't like that. We're just gonna defund that. Oh, this program here allows poor people in the inner cities to get a free school lunch. Yeah, we don't like that. We're gonna defund that. So that's basically what they're going to do. They're going to use this power in order to enact their ridiculous horseshit MAGA anti-fucking human being agenda. Right. So that's the first thing. Second concession he gave: efforts to raise the nation's debt ceiling must be paired with spending cuts. Right. And keep in mind, all of this shit is not in the Constitution. Right, these are all rules that they're enforcing on Kevin McCarthy. So basically, remember how every time there's a Democratic president, all of this bullshit comes out about spending and the debt ceiling and all that stuff. And then every time there's a Republican president, they just sort of forget about it. You know, like there was no fight over the debt ceiling for 4 years while Trump was president, but when Obama was president, it was like every 3 or 4 months. Debt ceiling is going to come. Oh, they're not going to raise the debt ceiling. Let alone, never mind the fact that if they don't approve the debt ceiling, the United States goes into default. And then that causes like major fucking like, worldwide problems that will fucking like, throw the entire like financial like, system into utter fucking chaos, make American money worthless. Like if that happens, it destroys like everything. The United States is gone as a world power. That's it. Forget it. Right? These fuckers like to play chicken with that. They never do it, and they only do it to Democrats. They never do that to Republicans ever. Republicans get to spend like crazy. If you look at how much the national debt went up under Donald Trump, it went up $8 trillion in 4 years, right? Contrast with that with Obama. Obama, it went up 10 trillion in 8 years. So Donald Trump was on track to spend way more than Obama was. And then if you look at George W. Bush, it went way up under George W. Bush. And at the end of Clinton's term, there was actually a surplus. It was going down. In 2000, the national debt was $5 trillion, right? Which you would think, okay, that's already a shitload. Okay. But we had, at the end of Bill Clinton's term, a $500 billion surplus, right? And we couldn't. So if you think about that, if they just would have gone another 4 years, if they would have took that $5 billion surplus, they could have paid down the national debt. There wouldn't be a national debt. It would be gone, right? The reason why it's so fucking high now is not only because of spending, it's also because of the interest. The interest is just compounding upon itself. And it's like so there would be no national debt now, right? The very fiscally responsible Republicans didn't decide to do that, did they? No, they cut taxes. When Bush came in, he took this $500 billion surplus. Instead of paying off the national debt, like they said they would, like the whole time during Clinton's, tenure as president, they said they were going to cut the fucking national debt. They never did it, right? Instead of doing what they said they were going to do, they decide instead to cut taxes. What happens when you cut taxes and you don't cut spending, right? The debt goes up. And that's exactly what they want to do here. So they're saying, okay, well, because this is what they're saying. Well, we're not going to raise the debt ceiling unless we cut spending cuts, right? So what are you going to cut? Right? They're not going to cut any of the military stuff. No, they love the military. They will not cut any military spending, right? So what are they going to cut? They're going to cut, other discretionary spending. Like what? Like Social Security, like Medicare, right? That's what it is, right? Like social programs, right? This is what they want to do every time the Republicans are in power. This is what they try to do. Right? And they can never pull it off when they themselves are in power, because the first thing they always do when they are in power is cut taxes. Right? They use these spending tricks in order to essentially force Democrats into enacting their agenda. And that's what that's all about, right? Okay, third concession. They let's see, what was I going to say? So they're going to hold votes on key conservative bills, including a balanced budget amendment, congressional term limits, and border security. So basically they want to get all of their shit passed, which, keep in mind that the Senate is still controlled by Democrats. So, and the presidency is controlled by Democrats. So none of this shit's going to pass. And so they basically want to pass stuff that they know is not going to... You know what? We're going to put that on a new layer. They want to pass shit that they know is not going to be enacted into law for political reasons. So that they can go home to their people and be like, see? We're just going to merge that down. And then we're going to put a new layer here. We're going to call this layer simple. So that they can go to their constituents and just be like, see, we passed all this shit, blah, 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 blah. So they basically want to, politicking is what they're going to do with it. They're going to pass a bunch of crap that they know will never be actually signed into law so that they can run on it later on. They have, and it just shows it's that they don't have any interest in actually serving people. They all just want to serve themselves. It's such fucking bullshit. Let's see. They want more caucus representation on committees. So they want to be in charge of everything, right? No surprise there. They want to cap discretionary spending at 2022 levels. Oh, shit. That was the wrong tool. Step backwards. I meant to get the eraser. There we go. Which is also bullshit, which will never happen because, you have inflation every year, so they have to take that into account for government spending. So when you're making budgets in the millions and billions of dollars like this, you can't just take the same amount from last year and then appropriate that to this year because if you don't take inflation into account, then you're going to come up short. So that's part of the reason why government programs tend to grow every year like that. But still, it's like you can't just cap it. I mean, what if, for example, like you need more money for a particular program? I don't know, disaster relief. Seem to be having a lot of disasters, wouldn't you say, around the country every year? So it's just very short-sighted, and is not good government. Okay, here's one that actually makes sense. They want 72 hours to review a bill before it comes to the floor. One of the complaints you often hear from Republicans is like, no one's ever actually read this bill. And it's because, yes, the bills when they come up are thousands and thousands of pages sometimes, right? And here's the thing, they have a staff that goes through the bill and tells them what's in it, sums it up for them. That's part of what being a senator or a congressman is. So one thing they always complain about is, well, no one's ever actually read this bill. We don't know what's in it, blah, blah, blah. Yes, you do. You know what's in it. This is basically just a complaint. This is sort of like a bullshit complaint, like thing that they sling at Democrats. So the Democrats wasteful spending, blah, 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 blah. And here's the thing about it. It's not going to do anything, right? Okay, now you have 72 hours to review a bill before it goes to the floor. All that's going to do is slow shit down, right? It's not going to actually change anything. And we know that people like Lauren Boebert and Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene, they don't actually read the fucking legislation that comes before them anyway, right? This is basically just fluff. It's fluff that they can tell their constituents at home, like that, pretend that they're doing something when they're actually not doing anything to help anybody. That's what this is for, right? And they want to create a committee to probe the weaponization of the federal government. What the fuck does that mean? That's conspiracy theory bullshit. Basically, the conspiracy theory is that the FBI has been making conservatives look bad over the last 5 years. The FBI, for example, they blame certain FBI agents for some investigations into Trump. I can't for the Russia investigation. There was these two FBI agents, and they pulled up some these two FBI agents that had a relationship, had a personal relationship, sexual relationship, and there were some tweets where they basically said that they hated Trump, and the conspiracy theory is that these guys planted evidence and shit like that. It's complete bullshit. Another one is that the FBI set up the January 6th riot. That's bullshit too. So this is just, and the thing is, they know that this is bullshit. right? Actually, I don't know. Maybe Lauren Boebert, Matt Gaetz don't know, but the general Republican leadership knows that these allegations are shit that you hear on Alex Jones. It's horseshit. The FBI did not set up these people, right? But this is what they want to do. So they want to make a committee so that they can say to their, because so many of their constituents are overrun with these horseshit conspiracy theories. It's so prevalent on the right that they basically are catering to the fucking like Alex Jones crowd now. And it's like, oh, we're gonna do something about the FBI. It's like, the fuck out of here. It's horseshit. It's conspiracy theory bullshit. And here's the thing about all this is that it wastes money. You know, these whenever they do a probe, like the January 6th probe that they did, whenever they have a committee like this, they get a budget and they end up spending money to investigate shit that they know is like bullshit, right? And it's just a waste of time and money. The country has real problems that we got to be dealing with. You know, homelessness, natural disasters, right? Like, I mean, fucking the economy is shitty for most people, right? There's big fucking problems out there. The environment is really fucked up, right? I mean, fucking like global climate change. Like, there's lots of crises in which we are heading towards a brick wall at 90 miles an hour, and they're gonna waste time investigating the FBI because of some fucking like text messages that got Trump's fifis hurt. Waste of fucking time. Here's the last one. Restore the Holman Rule. Right. That's what they want to do. So what the fuck is the Holman Rule? Well, oh hey, I see there's some people. Why don't we read some comments here? Let's read a few comments and then we'll talk about what the Holman Rule is, because I actually have a video there. And we're at about 11:54. So, oh shit. So yeah, let's read a few comments and then we will talk about the Holman Rule. Socialism on roids. What's up, man? Good to see ya. If they had this much trouble getting a speaker elected, just imagine how dysfunctional the majority is going to be. Yeah. Yeah. One of these other concessions they made is that any member can call for a vote of no confidence. So basically, if McCarthy steps out of line and does something that the MAGA crowd doesn't like, right, like refuse to go along with their bullshit conspiracy theories or their idiotic witch hunts or whatever, they can just decide to have a vote of no confidence and then drag us through all of this shit all over again. Because what'll end up happening is, oh, wait a minute, it should be here, right? Here we go. What'll end up happening is exactly what happened again today. So that's another way in which McCarthy kind of screwed the pooch on himself and basically gave up too many concessions and made his ass powerless. Because now they can just threaten him with, oh yeah, well, I'm gonna vote you out, and then we'll just hold up the fucking like Congress again for another week until we, So and here's the thing about that is that, well, there's no distinction in that rule. It says any member, so the Democrats can do the same thing at any time. So I predict, I'm going to put on my prophet's turban here and make a prediction. I'm thinking that this could very well end up being a tactic to stop votes on something that you don't like. So let's say that the Democrats, somebody, there's a bill that's getting voted on that they don't want, that they don't like, then they can just be like, okay, well, vote of no confidence, right? And then they have to go through this speaker, like electing the speaker shit all over again, and just like delay this vote, ends up delaying the vote. I could see that happening. I mean, sounds to me like that's how the rule works. I don't know, I could be wrong. But sounds to me like that is very much a possibility. Dynacat, they would have all put Trump in and called it a miracle from God. Yeah, yeah. I'm actually surprised that because so when Matt Gaetz nominated Donald Trump as like a goof, right? Because he's an asshole. I'm actually surprised nobody else voted for him because that was a thing that they over the last year or so. Like there's always been this chatter on the right wing about all of the different ways in which they could steal the presidency and like somehow install Trump back into the presidency without him actually winning an election, right? There's lots of chatter about that in right wing circles. And one of the things that I've heard proposed is that, well, if we can take the House and the Senate, then in the House you elect him to be Speaker of the House, and then you impeach, you know, um, Biden and Kamala Harris, and then Trump becomes president. That's actually one of the plots that I've heard discussed, and you know, which is bullshit. I mean, of course, it'll never happen. It can't happen now because they would have to have a veto-proof majority in the Senate and the House, right, in order for that to happen. But it just surprises me that it really. I thought that I don't know more of them would be behind this idea of making Trump the Speaker of the House just as a fucking troll, right? But I guess they understood that that was ridiculous. So I don't know. It wouldn't put it. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually did, you know, try to make Trump the fucking Speaker of the House. I really would not be surprised by that. Lewis the Hedgehog, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to uh, figure that out, and I should know because I am one. Wait, what? Not sure what we're talking about, but you're a rocket scientist? Good. Build me a rocket and get me the fuck off the planet. I would like to go live on the moon or on Mars, please. I'm perfectly cool just being there by myself. I just just have to bring a lot of Cheetos and maybe a couple of jugs of water, and I'll be good. So, anyway, um, socialism on roids. The debt has been their go-to hiding place for justifying their opposition to the modern role of government, for justifying austerity politics and deregulation. Yes, for sure. And it's just funny how whenever they're in charge, the support for austerity politics and deregulation just seems to fly right out the window. It really is, the debt, the fights over the debt really are only they're only something they use to push back against Democrats. That's really it. You know, every time. And here's the thing, I wouldn't just be saying that, but it's been like 30 years now that they've been doing this. Like 30 years. Every time there's a Democrat, they fight and squabble over spending and over the debt and over the deficit and all this other shit. And every time there's a Republican, they completely forget it all exists. And the Republicans spend way more money than the Democrats. The Republicans end up increasing the debt and the deficit by leaps and bounds more than Democrats do. And it's just really ridiculous that, they always run on fiscal responsibility when in real life it's the exact opposite. It's the Democrats are the ones who are fiscally responsible. If you actually look at the proof, the proof is in the pudding. If you look at the rates in which the debt increases, in which the deficit is reduced at spending rates and stuff like that, it's very consistent over the last 30 years, ever since Jimmy Carter, even 40 years at this point. you know, that Republicans don't give a fuck about actual spending. They only use it as a club. And they somehow convinced everybody out there that they're somehow better for spending, that they're somehow better for the economy too. And that's another thing. The economy always shrinks under Republicans. Always. This is what happens, right? They get into power, they do some shit like they cut taxes. There's a very short boom. You'll see a boom in the stock market, right? You'll see a boom because they cut taxes. And what do rich people do when they have shitloads of money? They invest it in stuff that benefits them. So they don't actually go out and create jobs. That's not a thing that happens when rich people get money. No. Rich people get money, they invest it because it's a waste of money to create a job if you have an extra $1 million laying around. Why would you create a job for somebody? Like, you're only going to hire people when, so, let's say you run a company, right? You're only going to hire people when there's demand for it. So when there's demand for your goods and service, then you hire more people to meet that demand. Well, if there's no demand and you have an extra $1 million laying around, to just go like hire a bunch of people to do what? To do nothing. What are they going to do? There's no work coming in, right? So why are you going to hire people? Why would you invest in your business if the market is not supporting your new investment? It's a waste of money. So what do they do with all this every time they cut taxes for whenever time the Republicans cut taxes, That Reagan did it, Trump did it, Bush Jr. did it. Every single one of them, giant tax cut. What happened after that? Right? Boom in the stock market, right? Most of it from companies buying back their own stocks, those stock buyback things, right? Because that enriches themselves. When they buy back their own stocks, that enriches themselves, right? Which should be illegal, but that's the way our fucking, fucked up ass country is set up, right? So every time, huge, and then a bubble forms. So in the 80s, it was the savings and loan bubble, and then after 2000, it was the housing market, housing market crash, right? That huge bubble formed, and right now there was another bubble forming, and it actually burst early because of COVID, but it was another housing market bubble. Right, that was on the verge of collapsing again, and then COVID comes around, slows everything down, and that caused the bubble to burst early, and was partially the reason why Trump didn't get reelected. Well, so at least COVID is good for one thing, right? And but that's what happens every single time, and then after that, you get a huge recession, right? And then Democrats get elected in the middle of the recession, and that's what happened to Obama. He gets, there's there was everything's looking pretty good, right? Bush becomes president, cuts taxes, causes a huge fucking recession. Obama gets elected right in the middle of the recession, right? Hampers his ability to enact his agenda, right? It takes 8 years. Shit finally gets back to some semblance of normal, even though in a lot of places in this country it never recovered from the 2008 market crash, but that's another story, right? People vote in Trump, vote in another Republican, right? Cuts taxes. The exact same shit was happening again, and it just so happened that COVID came along and caused it to, the pandemic came along, it caused the shit to burst early, and that's the pattern, So the country is fiscally better off under Democrats. The economy is better off under Democrats. I mean, if you have the choice between shitty and even more shitty, which one do you choose? I guess you choose, the one that's less shitty, right? It's a dirty game, folks, but it's the only one that the man left us to play. At least I would say so. Anyway, Lewis the Hedgehog also has obsessing over the LGBTQIA plus community and Hunter Biden's laptop going to fix things like inflation and the debt. It's not, and I was going to bring that up a little bit later here. It will not at all. It will do absolutely nothing to fix inflation or the debt. It's culture war bullshit, which seems to be a lot of what Republicans want to focus on in this next Congress, the 116th Congress, I think, is what it is. It's either the 116th or 117th. I can't remember which one this is. But anyway, in this session, they basically they want to focus on stupid culture war horseshit that does not actually address any of the problems that we actually have, and is just stuff so that they can, that their constituents can masturbate to after marathon sessions of Alex Jones and Tucker Carlson binge watching. You know what I mean? Anyway, socialism on roids. It's not. I find it telling that Republicans campaign on both the inflation issue and gas prices, but never offered any actual solutions for either. Because they don't have solutions to those. And, gas prices are going down by themselves, which is like, why were they so high during the election? I wonder why that is. Maybe it had something to do with, the gas companies wanting Republicans to be in charge because they, I don't know, cut pollution regulations. They don't try to enact pollution regulations. Maybe that's why. Maybe the Saudis or whatever are a little pissed that the Democrats don't want to stop giving them guns and bombs so that they can go kill Yemenis people. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know, but it's just very, very telling that as soon as the election's over, gas goes down by like $2. Even though it's still expensive as fuck in California, don't get me wrong. It's always expensive in California though, but still I've noticed that it's like below $5, which is nice. I even saw it below $4 in a few places. But yeah, they have no solutions. That's the thing. They have never had solutions. I don't think I can remember any time in my lifetime, like ever, when a Republican has ever put a solution to anything, like at all. It's going back all the way to as soon as when I was like politically conscious, like in the 90s when I first started paying attention to politics and voting and shit. I don't think I've ever seen a Republican offer a solution to anything. Like, when was the last time that they actually did something to help people or offered an actual solution for something? Like, never. Even when it comes to problems they invent, the old saying that politicians invent problems and then offer a solution. Like, you remember the gun bill that got passed last year? Like, the first bill in like 30 years had to do with like, regulating firearms. You remember that? And during the fight for that, there was lots of like, the Republican line was that this is a mental health issue. This isn't a gun issue. It's not it's a mental health issue. Yet none of them even offered any solutions for that. Okay, it's a mental health issue. Great. What are you going to do about it? Where's your funding to... All right, so we need to get these young men, these young white men who go on murder sprees because they're, like, not getting laid enough or whatever. We need to get them some mental health. Okay, good. What's your solution for that? Are you gonna pay for, money? I don't know, are you going to make it so Medicare and Medicaid can, like, address your, like, mental health problems, that if you get committed or whatever, or if you have to go get therapy or some shit, are you going to help pay for that? No. They didn't offer any, even for that, even for, like, the problem that they fucking invented, because mass shootings are not, because of fucking mental health. It's not a mental health issue. It's a fucking access to firearms issue is what it is, right? So even for the shit that they made up, they're not going to offer any solutions at all. They don't have solutions. That's the thing, And you could go, yeah, well, Democrats have shitty solutions. The ACA, for example, is a shitty solution to a major problem. But at least it's fucking something. At least we can get something out of them. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to believe in democracy, then this is what democracy is. It's like, you don't get the best solutions, right? Unfortunately, in a democracy, you get what everybody can agree on, which is usually not very good. But with them, we're not getting anything, right? How does that look? Does it look like weird? I'm trying to make it look like weird magical patterns or some shit. Yeah, it looks all right. Let's put a little more here. Anyway. Dynacat loves me. Stock buybacks were mostly illegal until Reagan, I think, might have been later. Then we need to go back in time and make that shit illegal again. It should be illegal. It should be, if you get a tax cut And you shouldn't be allowed to just spend all the money on your own stock. I mean, not even just a tax cut, just in general. Like, I don't know. Plenty of good reasons why that shouldn't be allowed. That, we should probably, oh crap, wrong one. We should probably just make a full stream about that one of these days. Um, okay. Anyway, there's a few more things I want to talk about here before, what is it, 12:13? Okay, so we can go for another 45 minutes or so. So we were going to talk about the Holman Rule, because this is one concession that they wanted from Ken McCarthy, right? What the fuck is a Holman Rule? So remember, this is not in the Constitution. This is just a rule that they decided themselves that they're going to, a power that Congress decided that they're just going to take, right? And it was a rule that was first enacted in 1876. It was rescinded in 1983. And what it does is that it allows the Congress, specifically the House, in order to enact legislation which will target specific people in the federal government and either fire them or reduce their salaries so that they quit, right? And it's essentially, a kind of that's why it's a power grab, because they say that, well, Congress has the purse strings, so they can just like defund something straight to zero. Well, usually what they do is they make cuts to they make these types of cuts to a department more broadly. They'll cut 10-20% off of a department in total, right? But what the Holman rule says is that, well, if we don't like this program, this specific program, we're going to remove all funding to it. So let's say you have a program that teaches, that helps, illegal immigrants get their paperwork together so that they can go through the system legally. Let's say that there's a program that does that. And they go, no, we don't like those brown people. We're just going to cut that program to zero, right? So even though the law got passed, right, that says that this program is enacted, and that another law that got passed that says, well, here's the funding that's set aside for it. In their new legislation, they can just remove that funding. So even though that program is still technically on the books, there's no funding for it, so no work gets done, right? And even the Holman Rule is even a little more specific than that. And there's been a few, conceivably, it could be used to remove like a specific person and say, well, okay, we don't like James Comey, the director of the FBI. We don't like him, right? So is he still the director of the FBI? I think Comey's the director of the FBI, right? But they could say, former director. Okay, James Comey is the former director. Anyway, but they could go, okay, well, the current director of the FBI, we don't like him. We want him to get fired. But Congress is not they're not the people that get to determine who runs the FBI, right? The federal branch does that, right? But they can go, okay, well, according to this rule, they could conceivably, now this has never happened in the past, but they could conceivably pass a law that says this director of the FBI will not be paid past this date. And then that would get them to quit because they're not making any money. That's the idea behind it, right? Now, as far as I could tell, because this was enacted all the way up until 1983, right? As far as I can tell, using the Holman Rule to target specific people like that is unconstitutional. And because, yeah, it sounds like it should be, right? It sounds like that's the most unconstitutional shit ever, because it allows them to circumvent the executive branch. The executive branch, for example, like, so the way it works is that Congress passes the law that says, okay, we're going to have this program or that program. The executive branch is what executes that, right? So the executive branch takes the money, they hire all the people, they create all the, department of this or that, whatever, and they enact the policy. right? So there's a difference between law and policy. Like the law is what's passed by Congress. The policy is how they implement the law, and there's certain ways that you can kind of change the effect depending on the policy, right? So it's kind of a yeah, and so this is basically them. The Holman Rule allows is an attempt by Congress to micromanage the executive branch, and in the one case where it actually they did try to fire certain people, it was ruled unconstitutional, right? And that was the case that did it was United States versus Levitt, 1946. And what it was, this was at the height of the you know, Cold War, right? And well, I guess the Cold War actually, I guess you could say the height of it was in the 50s. But this was during the Cold War, and this was during like the big Red Scare, and there were 39 employees in the federal government that were accused of having communist sympathies, right? And so there was this one congressman kind of guy that fucking tried to pass a specific law that said these 39 people will not be paid anymore, and then went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that. And these guys eventually, there was still more infighting, right? And they eventually got their back pay and all that stuff. Let's see. Yeah, it looks pretty good, right? Wouldn't you say? I need to put some lighting on it, but I think it looks okay. Let's color these little pots and pans in the background here. So that's basically the Holman Rule. And the Holman Rule was removed in 1983, but re-added back in 2017, and then removed again when the Democrats took power back in 2019, right? Just another way of them handicapping themselves, if you ask me. But still, this is a power that I don't think Congress should have. It sounds like something that actually, that should be a tan bowl. That sounds, yeah, a little bit like it's overstepping the grounds, congressional power there, right? I mean, but this is why they want it. Why do they want it? So that they can target specific people, so that they can get rid of, for example, the director of the FBI, which is somebody that they want to toss out, so that they can get rid of Biden's cabinet picks that they don't like, that kind of thing, right? And I'm not just saying that. That's something that came out of Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's what she said. And I want to show you guys here a video. Let me just open this up. This is a Facebook video. Pause that. And let me bring this down here. And let me go ahead, open up my main capture. So this is on Facebook. This is Charlie Kirk's thing on Facebook. You should never go to this. But if you want it... Whoa, what the hell just happened? Okay, there we go. All right, that's good. But if you want it, here's the link to it. So you guys, if you feel like it, you can go check him out at your own leisure. So we're going to skip around here because this is like 10 minutes long. I'm not going to listen to the entire thing. This is basically Marjorie Taylor Greene discussing about the whole fiasco that happened in the last week. And we're going to start here at around 140 because this is where she talks about the Holman Rule. So let's start right here. And let's turn this up so that you can hear it. And here's Marjorie Taylor Greene describing why she wants the Holman Rule reenacted in this Congress.
Voting cards. And it's being proven right now. So we need to put this fight that's happening right now, we need to put it into real battles, and that's creating legislation that is totally demolishing the 87,000 IRS army, that's using the Holman Rule to fire people like Merrick Garland in the Department of Justice and fire more people in the Biden administration. The Holman Rule allows us to completely cut out their salary and completely get rid of them. But we can't do these things until we elect Kevin McCarthy, and he's willing.
So there you go. Right out of her mouth, It's not not me saying this. I'm not the one saying that this is what they want to do this shit for. This is straight out of her mouth. She just straight out admitted it that she wants to do it in order to enact policy, right? Firing 87,000 IRS agents. What the hell is that all about? Well, that's a conspiracy, right? It's not, that's another conspiracy theory that the right wing has. They think that these 87,000 IRS agents are going to show up armed and drag people off to concentration camps and do it under the guise of you not paying your taxes, which, if you don't pay your taxes, you should go to jail. That's what I think. But that's, god damn it, I keep choosing the wrong one. Step backwards. What the hell even is that thing? I don't know. I never even used that tool anyway. Fuck. All right, hang on. Wrong. I need to go back to this layer. Right. But that's not what the actual legislation says. This is in let's see. I have it written down here. This is in some legislation that was passed last year that will hire 87,000 new agents over the course of 10 years. Right. So it's not like tomorrow 87,000 IRS agents are going to show up. And then there was like these conspiracies because like somebody noticed that the IRS like agents use guns. And it's like, well, yes, because they're like, you know, they're like federal officers. And so when they go to arrest people for not like paying their taxes, right? Then they go armed. That's because they're cops. That's what they are. So it's like, why is that such a big deal? And that was like a huge deal. Like, there was all this shit all over conservative Facebook and everything about how the IRS people are armed and they're coming for you and all this other shit. And it's like, no, that's not it at all. It's they've always been armed. They've always had their own like agents that, like, not all of them are armed, but they always had their own agents that have been armed. And this is nothing different here at all. It's just that they're gonna actually start, auditing rich people for a change. Right? Because this is what ends up happening is that they defund the IRS, right? And when you go to audit somebody like Donald Trump, it is a lot of work. It's hard work because they're super rich and they have a lot of shit to declare and all this other stuff, and so it takes a long period of time. And they may end up not getting anything out of it because there's so many tax loopholes that somebody like Donald Trump can use that he can go 5 years and only pay $750 in fucking taxes, even though the guy's a multimillionaire, right? Which Donald Trump does not appear to be a billionaire at all. I don't know if you guys been following the whole Trump taxes thing, but it doesn't look like he's a billionaire. It looks like he is a multimillionaire. He's still rich. Don't get me wrong. Still super rich, but no. Billionaire, no. Anyway, so what do they do then? They don't concentrate on super rich people because it's a pain in the ass and you don't get anything back for it. So they concentrate on small people like you and me, that it's easy, and they can go, oh, you didn't pay this $600 in taxes because you fucking like sold a few blankets and shit on Etsy. Well, we're gonna gig you for that. In the meantime, fucking Jeff Bezos and Donald Trump and fucking Elon Musk get away with like, paying like fucking $800 in taxes over 5 years. It's bullshit. So that's why that's why they want to stop this. That's why they want to get rid of the 87,000 new IRS agents over the course of 10 years to protect their rich criminal friends who donate them all the money that gets them elected. That's what it's really about. I want to skip forward to, let's see, 4 minutes in, because she talks a little bit about, the other Republicans. She talks a little bit about these guys and, let's see, and why they aren't good enough.
Going against Kevin McCarthy. It's only a small group of Freedom Caucus that are going against Kevin McCarthy. So that's something else that people don't know. It's just sad to me that there's not enough information out there for people to truly understand what's really happening in here, instead of just thinking that conservative fantasies can come true by just saying, "Oh, it's Jim Jordan. Make him speaker." Or Chip Roy. Chip Roy did not object to Joe Biden's electoral college votes, Charlie. Chip Roy set it out on the January 6th committee vote when they created that committee. He didn't even vote no. He didn't vote yes, but he just set out the vote. And
So you're seeing the reasons why she's objecting to these people, right? Chip Roy. Chip Roy is the who the fuck is this guy? He's kind of a racist piece of shit, Chip Roy, but he wasn't extreme enough for her. You know, he actually didn't try to overthrow the election with her. Okay, let's continue.
he knows exactly what he did. So people need to understand who they're following. Scott Perry voted for gay marriage
That is
right
correct.
before his
That is
general
right.
election.
That is
Voted
correct.
for it, and he's chairman, and he's leading this fight against Kevin McCarthy. And so I'm sick of these people that have done things that are hypocritical, truly hypocritical, and the base would hate them for it, and they would be screaming at them for it. But the base doesn't know, because the only person they're hearing being chewed apart is Kevin McCarthy.
So, if you guys caught that, right? See, so these are both guys that, you know, that other that they elected, like the other Freedom Caucus people like suggested to be, you know, nominated to be speaker, right? Chip Roy and then this other dude fucking you know, Scott Perry, right? And keep in mind here that Marjorie Taylor Greene was this whole time on Kevin McCarthy's side. So she's pissed at these other guys. Why? Because they're not extreme enough for her. Right? So Chip Roy, for those of you guys who don't know, he's seemingly, you know, he's basically aligned ideologically with the Freedom Caucus people. He is a major piece of garbage, Chip Roy, right? Who the fuck is he? I think he's let me see what state he's from exactly, because I didn't write down Chip Roy. He's from Texas. Chip Roy is from Texas, right? And I think Scott Perry is from Florida. Let's see, Scott Perry. Yeah, Pennsylvania. Scott Perry is from Pennsylvania. So the way that she described him, you know, it makes it sound like, oh, these guys are moderates, right? Oh, okay, they didn't try to, like, you know, steal the election with her. Chip Roy didn't try to steal the election, you know, like she did, right? And then the other guy, oh, he voted for gay marriage, right? Well, you know, last March, Chip Roy was one of the congressmen who voted against the anti-lynching bill that went through. This is March of 2021, so I guess not last March. He said that the anti-lynching bill served the woke agenda, because it's woke to not, like, you know, kill people, right? Apparently. This was a bill that made lynching a federal hate crime. So, yeah, lynching is still already a crime, but this is a bill that made it a federal hate crime, and that gave, if you were convicted of that, you got a 30-year minimum sentence. This is why I don't mind hate legislation. Like, there's a lot of, like, you know, just as an aside, there's a lot of progressives and liberals and Democrats and stuff that don't like hate crime bills because they say, well, it's just a crime. It's why should it be a hate crime? That's politicizing speech is, you know, I don't believe that, because crime is not speech, right? That's what it is. Crime is, you know, and they go, well, why should a guy get more, you know, if he kills somebody, why should he get more time if he does it for hate, you know, if he's part of a hate group? I don't have a problem with that at all. I see it as a way of deterring violence from hate groups, is that you get caught, you know, something that maybe if it's an assault and you would get 5 to 10, now you're going to get fucking 30 to 50 because you're part of fucking, like, you know, because you're part of the fucking Proud Boys or a skinhead or something. I got no problem with that whatsoever, because fuck those people. That's why. I don't give a fuck at all. So, and I don't see that being unconstitutional or wrong in the slightest. It's We need to stop these people somehow, right? And it would be fine if there wasn't psychopaths going out to gay bars and slaughtering people. If we didn't have that problem, then yeah, we could debate it. But we already seen what's actually happening out there, and we got to fucking do something about it. And if that means that you get to go to jail for a little bit longer because you're like, when you murder 50 people in a nightclub in Florida, 49 people, excuse me, in a nightclub in Florida, if that means you get to go to jail for 2 extra decades, as opposed to like, whatever, I'm all for it. Right. So that's my thing. Um, but basically, that was his response. He said, "This is Chip Roy's response to the woke agenda, the anti-lynching bill serving the woke agenda." He said it simply raises the punishment for things that are already federal crimes, including those things that are unrelated to lynching, such as gender identity, in an effort to advance a woke agenda under the guise of correcting racial injustice, which is total bullshit. Apparently, he never expanded on what he meant by gender identity in that comment. And basically, he was just doing it because, he's a racist sack of garbage, culture warrior asshole who was trying to you know, legislate his morality onto the rest of us. He actually made a pro-lynching comment around the time of this vote. This was in response to the Atlanta shooting on March 16th of 2021, where a white supremacist incel shot 8 people at a spa, and 6 of them were Asian. I don't know if you guys remember that shooting. Dude breaks into a spa because his girlfriend dumped him. Shoots 6 Asian people, shoots 8 people, and 6 of them were Asian. And turns out the dude was a fucking white supremacist, fucking incel kind of dude. Right? Well, I know that's not funny. I'm not laughing at that because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's horrible. Because that's how I sort of react sometimes when faced with horrible news. Sorry about that. It's a bad habit I have. I chuckle when shit is fucking really horrible. Anyway, yeah, that was in response to that. This was the comment that this guy made. We believe in justice. There's an old saying in Texas about, find all the rope in Texas and get a tall oak tree. We take justice very seriously, and we ought to do that. Round up the bad guys. That was his response. And remember, right, this was like a week after he voted no on the anti-lynching bill. So, kind of putting his foot in his mouth a little bit there. Let's see. So yeah, Chip Roy, not a super progressive guy, but Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't like him because he didn't try to steal the election. He wasn't on board with the Actually, we want this one is what we want. He wasn't on board with the Green Bay sweep because that's what that's what Marjorie Taylor Greene. That was her part, by the way, because you'll hear just a little aside, right, during the insurrection and all that. You'll hear a little aside about how like, oh, this was my first day, blah blah blah. I didn't do anything, from Marjorie Taylor Greene. Nope, she was part of that. Her role in that was to object to the certification for her state, so that Mike Pence would then turn around and be like, well, we have all these objections. I'm not going to certify the election, and then they could kick it back to the state legislatures, who would then vote for Trump. That was the plan. That was the Green Bay sweep. She was part of that. She was going along with that, right? Even though she was a brand new fucking congressperson, that was her role in that. And she's pissed because this guy didn't go along with it. She's pissed because this guy, Chip Roy, didn't help her steal the election. So, right. Scott Perry, who they mentioned is also, he's from Pennsylvania, right? She was mad because he, voted for the Respect for Marriage Act, and actually he did a good thing. He voted to help gay people be able to be married like normal, ordinary people, right? Like everybody else. he voted to, like, take that step so that you know, we keep like the law the way it was, so that they can be married and be normal people like the rest of us. Right? She was pissed at that. Scott Perry voted against the Violence Against Women Act. Right? So he doesn't give a shit about women. Says he doesn't believe in the existence of systemic racism in the United States. This was at the Rotary Club of New York in 2020. Scott Perry said that this is his quote: "To say the United States falls into that category of systemic racism, that belies the fact that we had a war to cleanse our country of that issue. The propensity of these events is actually going down. It's the sensationalism of these events that's changed." Yeah, we had a war 150 years ago in order to get rid of systemic racism. Yeah, that just fixed everything, right? Right. Let's just completely ignore the reality of the legacy of slavery. Let's ignore all of that and just go all the way back to, it was the Civil War. Oh, how come these people can't be happy with what they have? We fought a war over that shit. Can't you just be, goddammit, can't you just be happy? There's no more racism. We had a black president. Get the fuck out of my face. All right. I want to very kind of, we need to make this even lower. Very just sort of like, actually what we should do is turn on the shape dynamics again. There we go. So this will make it, because we're going to put some lighting on this candle, even though this will be a super bright ass candle if it can light the hat up that much. But anyway, what else? What else? He also urged Congress to delay the certification of Joe Biden's results, but when it came down to it, voted to certify Pennsylvania. So he was on board in the beginning with their little scheme to steal the fucking election, and then just later on kind of chicken shitted out of it, I guess. Right? That looks like shit. How am I going to do this? I need to, like... Sorry, so this is kind of like new territory for me. Like, I don't really do this. I'm kind of experimenting here for, like, let's see, we need to make this 2 with this type of lighting. 2 please. I want to make that 2. So yeah, both of these guys, by any stretch of the imagination, both of these guys are not what you would call liberal or progressive or even moderate per se. No, not at all. They're none of those things. These guys are as conservative as they can get. Right? But she doesn't like them because they're not extreme enough. Right? Because they weren't loyal to the fucking Trump, to the plan for Trump to steal the fucking election. They weren't loyal to that shit. Because this guy, Scott Perry, had the audacity to vote to do something that helps gay people. That means that he's a rhino. That means that she has to, that he's one of her enemies there, right? Our constituents don't like that. Yeah, our constituents don't like anything that helps gay people. Constituents don't like democracy. That's what she's fucking saying, right? So, yeah. And here's the thing. It's like she's usually very much ideologically aligned with Matt Gaetz, with Lauren Boebert, And if you look at who these people were, like the 6 people that actually tried to stop Kevin McCarthy, Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert, and the other people, Matt Rosendale, Bob Good, stuff like that. They were the people who on January 6th were also involved in the Green Bay sweep. They were also involved in trying to overturn the election, right? So now those people, because fucking Kevin McCarthy is a weenie, an ineffectual fucking feckless weenie who's going to be the weakest fucking Speaker of the House ever, Because of that, now these assholes who tried to basically overthrow the country are going to be in charge of fucking the House of Representatives now. So, thankfully, they're kind of in charge. You know, they won't be able to actually pass anything because any bullshit that these people try to pass will never get through the Senate, will never get through Biden. But basically, for the next 2 years, we're really not going to have very much happen at all. And this is what's going to happen. We're just going to have these stupid fucking investigations in Hunter Biden's laptop, and why Twitter wouldn't show his penis and shit like that. That's what we're going to have, right? And there won't be any actual bills getting passed that help anybody. Here's what I predict. I predict that in the Senate, stuff will get passed, and then it'll come to the House and it will die. Usually, stuff dies in the Senate. This is what's going to happen. That's what I'm predicting, right? Most of the time, though, legislation has to be introduced in the House in the first place. So there's a very big chance that we just may see nothing like of significance at all as far as legislation get passed at all over the next 2 years, where our government will be essentially in gridlock for the next 2 years, and fighting over stupid things like fucking the spending bills and the fiscal cliff. You guys remember that? You remember the fiscal fucking cliff? That was such a big fucking deal back in 2013 or whatever. Shit like that. That's what's going to happen again. Everything, it's basically just going to be stuff designed to make Biden look bad, so that when Trump runs against him again in 2024, they can claim that Biden is a horrible president. That's really what's going on here, right? I don't know. One other thing I wanted to show here at 6:54. She talks a little bit about what she personally wants to do in this next Congress. Let's go on a little bit more here, right?
These are all conversations we can have today. I love Tucker Carlson's idea last night, Charlie. Did you see his ideas talking about releasing all the January 6th committee files? Let's do it. I am all in for that, because those people need to be held accountable for what they have done. How they have politically persecuted people. I want to see that happen. I want to see the D.C. jail shut down. I want to see January 6th defendants that are not allowed to bail out. That is completely wrong. These are things that I want to see worked on, and I think these are conversations that we can have today. Church committee is such a great idea. Right now, I think it's Jim Jordan that is going to be running it. Tucker talked about Thomas Massey last night. Thomas Massey is a great friend of mine. I totally support him too. Put Thomas Massey and Jim Jordan running a church-style committee right here in Congress.
All right. So you see what she wants, right? She wants to... All right, first off, let's go over what she said. Okay, because, she's a congresswoman. We have to take what she says seriously, right? And that candle looks okay, right? Would you say? Yeah. Let's say it would be this size. This would be the size that you would see it on the screen. So, well, it's cutting a little bit off, so let's just go down one more. Yeah, it looks all right. Trying to make it look like it's glowing or something. Anyway, release the January 6th committee files. What files are those exactly? I mean, they basically released a report, so does she want, emails and shit like that? Is that what she's talking about? Because let's listen to what she said, because this is what these people have done. Well, what did they do exactly? They investigated crimes. God damn it. I wish I could just turn that shit off forever. Extras, turn off the fucking extras, please. No, turn off the extras. Nope. God damn it. Turn off the guides. I wish I could just... It's because it grabs it and drags it out. I wish I could just get rid of that. Can I turn off... What if I turn off the Rulers. Will it still do that? Ah, this whole time. Holy crap. I got rid of the stupid fucking guides. Thank God. Okay, good. The guides thing really pisses me off. Fucking hate that. Um. Anyway, yeah. So she wants to. Okay, like, what is she really saying there? She wants to go through their emails and shit like that in order to find dirt so that they can use them, during the next election to get rid of these people that were on the January 6th committee. That's what she's really fucking saying there, right? I really liked how she said, "Oh, we should shut down the DC jail." Like, why? I mean, these people committed crimes. Like, she's saying it because they're holding um all of the fucking like people who stormed the Capitol, right? Well, these people committed crimes, man. I mean, if you break into the Capitol, that's a crime, right? Even if you don't do anything, even if you didn't beat up a cop or defecate in the fucking hallway or steal Nancy Pelosi's laptop or any shit like that. Even if you didn't do any of that stuff, it is a crime to walk into the Capitol. Even just walking inside of that door is a crime, right? So what did the DC police do that's so wrong? Like, why do you want to shut them down, right? It's because that's another bullshit, like, fucking, it's politicking, right? Is it going to change anything? No. It's basically politicking so that she can, like, go to her fucking people and be like, I'm pro MAGA. I'm saving these patriots that tried to fucking, like, take over the country and, like, murder Congress. Those people were there to murder people. They were there to kill you, Marjorie Taylor Greene. You were in that building. They were there to kill you. You fucking moron. Last one, church committee. Yeah, we kind of discussed that earlier. They want to investigate the FBI and see, because this is the narrative. The narrative is that all of the January 6 people were, it was all entrapment, and it was really the FBI that set them all up. If it, I mean, I thought it was Antifa myself. I mean, I heard it was Antifa that broke in. I heard it was Antifa dressed up in Trump gear, wearing red hats and stuff like that, who were the real, like, perpetrators there. But I guess it was the FBI now. I don't know. So she wants this church committee so that she can go and find out who was really responsible. And it's all this other shit. No actual solutions for anything. No, there's lots of problems in this country right now. We have tons and tons of problems, I mean, just the environment itself, environmental damage from global climate change is I mean, there's still children in Flint, Michigan drinking fucking water with lead in it, for fuck's sake, bridges collapsing, stuff like that. California, there's massive flooding in Northern California. I don't know if you guys heard about this. Fucking California got hit by a fucking cyclone, right? Which was, I mean, I got lucky because in where I live, it just rained really hard. Upstate, it's like flooding and shit. You know what I mean? Natural disasters. This costs money to stop these things. It costs money to repair bridges and roads and put proper flooding things, and then let alone every year that we have giant wildfires when shit isn't flooding, when the rest of the country is like frozen, like all on the East Coast and everything. There's blizzards and shit everywhere. People like, power fucking going out all around the country, stuff like that. We need to spend money if we want to have any semblance of civilization that will get us through all of these yearly national disasters, which occur every fucking year now because of global climate change. We're going to have to start spending money, right? No solutions for any of this. Any of this at all. She wants to investigate Hunter Biden's stupid fucking laptop, right? She wants to shut down the FBI. She wants to, and these are all things that are basically her, like, making it legal for Republicans to engage in crime. That's really what all of this shit is, right? I don't know. It's fucking ridiculous, folks. One more thing I want to go through before we end this. Let's get rid of this dumb bitch. Fuck off, Marjorie fucking Taylor.
These are all things.
Shut up. She's not even green anymore. Just Marjorie Taylor. One more thing I want to talk about here before we you know, these are things McCarthy himself have said that he wants to do, right? So I just put another little thing there, and this is an article that, let's open this up, all right? And let's read a little bit of this before we end this. What actually is McCarthy's agenda here, right? Immigration, parental rights, and public safety among House GOP priorities in new Congress. So they had this proposal last fall called Commitment to America, which is where they outlined whatever fucking stupid ass agenda they have, right? And let's see what exactly McCarthy himself. This is why McCarthy went through 15 humiliating fucking House votes and lost 14 of them. This is why he gave away all of his power so that he can enact this agenda here, right? This is why he's allowed himself to be beholden to the fucking traitors who tried to take over the goddamn country, right? So let's see, what exactly does he want to talk about? Well, I'm not going to talk about everything because I'm not going to read this entire thing, but we're just going to highlight a few of them. First thing here, McCarthy suggested in September that the first order of business in the new Congress is to repeal 87,000 IRS agents. The exact same shit that Marjorie Taylor Greene says. That's what Kevin McCarthy wants to do. This is a reference to the so-called Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 that Democrats passed in August. The measure included $80 billion infusion into the IRS that would allow the agency to hire nearly 87,000 new employees over a decade, with the expectation that increased enforcement would help subsidize the massive spending bill. I.e., they're hiring these people so that they have the manpower so that they can actually audit rich people. They want to get rid of that, right? Because the Republicans' number one job in the government, right, is to stop rich people from paying taxes. That's the only reason they're there. That's the only thing the only policies they ever actually enact is tax cuts. Everything else is just bullshit. Oh, we're going to build a wall, and they build half a fucking wall. Oh, we're going to take away people's children when they come over the border, whatever. Those are all little small things that they just throw out. They don't really give a fuck about any of that. The one thing that Republicans give a shit about is cutting taxes for rich people, making sure rich people don't pay taxes. And the rest of it, they could just, whatever. Who gives a fuck? That's his first priority that they're going to do, right? Ridiculous. And then let's go down a little bit. Another paragraph. McCarthy's plan released in the fall vowed to fully fund effective border enforcement strategies, infrastructure, and advanced technology to prevent illegal crossings and traffic by cartels. And to end catch and release loopholes, require legal status to get a job, and eliminate welfare incentives. First off, so what does that mean? Fully fund effective border enforcement strategies. Build the stupid fucking wall. That's what he's talking about, right? Because we spend even more money now on border enforcement and all that stuff than we did even under the Trump years, right? We're spending even more now. In the last fucking ominous spending bill, there was even more money allotted to fucking border control down there. The Republicans don't really give a fuck about border control because the whole time that Donald Trump was president and the whole time that fucking George W. Bush was president, nobody said shit about the border at all. No one gave a fuck at all. It suddenly stops being a problem when they're in charge. They only care about it when Democrats are there. And that's why, this whole thing with fucking, what's his name? Governor Ducey in Arizona, that fucking guy building this wall out of shipping containers. Did you hear about that shit? You know, how come he wasn't doing that in 2019, 2020, when there was all this fight over Trump's dumbass border wall that fell down and they defunded it and all this other stuff? When they were fighting it, how come he didn't just take that incentive himself and go, okay, well, then we're going to build it? Like, how come he didn't do that? He didn't do it because they don't give a fuck about, you know, illegal border crossings. Like, how come they didn't, there's all of this shit about, like, Ron DeSantis and, like, the fucking Greg Abbott from Texas, like, putting people on buses and sending them to Martha's Vineyard. That's still going on. I don't know if you guys understand, if you've heard in the news, like, fucking Greg Abbott is still doing that shit. He's still putting people on planes and sending them to fucking Kamala Harris's house as a stunt because he thinks that's going to make him president one day, right? That shit is still happening. Why weren't they doing that in 2018, 2019, 2020, right? Because they don't give a fuck. Because they don't care. And it's not like did the number of illegal border crossings go down during those years? No, it stays relatively the same. It increased a little bit because of Title 42. They were going to get rid of Title 42. It increased a little bit. But no, it's the same reason why every election Fox News will start talking about fucking like migrant caravans and stuff. And then the moment the election's over with, they shut up about it. It's because it's just another weapon they have in order to piss their fucking racist, stupid base. Like their base of fucking moronic, white sheet wearing, red hat fucking, red hat morons into voting for him. Here comes some brown people, get scared. Here comes the tax guy, get scared. Oh, the Democrats are spending too much money, get scared, your taxes are going to go up. That's all it is. It's like fucking bullshit. Right. Anyway, one more thing I wanted to talk about here was this parental bill of rights. Right. Oh yeah, addressing the fight over fairness in girls' sports. Yeah, that's a really big fucking thing. We need the federal government to get on that. McCarthy has said that the House will work to advance a bill to define sex solely as a person's reproductive biology and genetics at birth for the purpose of the Title IX in athletics. Because apparently trans girls in sports is such a big fucking problem that we need federal legislation for that. Like, let alone the fact that in Colorado there was exactly Colorado? That there was exactly like one trans girl in all of the high school sports in Colorado or some shit. It was either like one of those states, I can't remember. There was some state that passed a law saying that no trans girls in sports, and there was like exactly one trans girl in the entire fucking state that was like in sports. Like, are you fucking serious? Like, but no, this is apparently such a big fucking problem that we gotta have, the Congress has to actually get involved in this shit. It's like, yeah, right. Small government, except when it comes to what's hanging in between your legs. Right, folks? Let's see. Blah, blah, blah. Republicans vowed to confront big tech and demand fairness, i.e., they're pissed because Twitter took down the Hunter Biden dick pics. They think freedom of speech means that you should be able to post your wang anytime you want or the wangs of your political opposition. If I were to post somebody else's dick pic to Twitter, that's illegal, right? First off, I shouldn't be allowed to post my own dick pics on Twitter. They should, if I want to post my my weenus, right? If I want to post Big John and the twins up on Twitter, right? My balls and my nutsack and all that other crap all hanging out, all hairy and everything. If I wanted to post that on Twitter, that shouldn't be allowed because first off, no one wants to look at my fucking junk. Secondly, that's like, don't they have like a terms of service and shit that you're not allowed to do that, right? So why is it okay for me to post somebody else's penis? Somebody else's fucking cock and balls and not my own? Like, why? Just because it's the president's son? Like, this is what it is. That's what it is. They want to look into, they decided to actually enact it, follow their own fucking terms of service. Because they still think that for some dumb fucking reason, Hunter Biden's dick pics is going to make people not vote for Joe Biden. I don't know why. They lost the election. They lost the fucking midterms. Don't they understand that no one gives a shit? I guess they don't understand that. Stupid fucking morons. There's, let's see, one other thing that I really wanted to talk about here was, it doesn't say it in here, but somewhere in there, it talks about the Parental Bill of Rights, which is, um, we have an op-ed here in the Daily Caller, which I'm not gonna open this up, but I'll put the link down in the thing for you guys if you want to read it, because it's basically Kevin McCarthy just talking about CRT and all this other bullshit. And they want a parental bill of rights so that your parents can go in and like ban books in schools and make sure the school kicks out all the trans kids and all this other stupid bullshit. And they want to make that national fucking law. So thankfully, they control one house of Congress, which means none of the shit that they want to pass is ever going to get passed. You know, even if they try to do some sneaky shit, like since they don't want to have omnibus bills, since they don't want to do that, because usually what would happen sometimes is that they'll try to sneak this shit into the omnibus bill, saying, yeah, we're going to fund the government, and also, trans kids are banned from school. Like, they usually they try to do shit like that, and since they don't want to have an omnibus spending bill, they can't even do that, so they're fucking, like, hanging themselves out to dry here because they're morons, but whatever. So thankfully, none of this shit's going to get passed. But this is what we're going to see. This is what we're going to see coming out of the Congress. We're going to see nothing. It's going to be nothing is going to happen for the next 2 years. And it's just going to be one ridiculous Republican shit show after another until the next fucking election. So this is what happens, when you don't vote. And they have a 9-seat advantage. Like, that's it. Like, I think it's 9 seats. Yeah, like that's all they've got. And even with these, so they don't. Their hold is extremely tenuous in the first place. And with such a small advantage in Congress, this is still, they're going to drag us through all these ridiculous Republican shit shows for 2 years here. This is why it matters, folks. Like, and just remember, if they had a 50-seat majority, it would be even worse. Right? They'd have far more power than they do now. It would be 10 times worse, and the fact that the ability of them to pass some of the shit would actually, like, that's why I'm not too scared of it, because 6 seats, I'm pretty sure that the Democrats can peel off 6 Republicans to actually pass spending bills and stuff like that, to keep the government from going into default, to raise the debt ceiling, to actually fund the government, stuff like that. I'm pretty sure stuff like that will be fine. I'm pretty sure that they can find 6 fucking Republicans out there who are either retiring or come from blue districts or something that, will be able to keep the government afloat and keep shit running. So that's why I'm not too scared about them, right? It would have been way worse if they would have had, like, say, a 50-seat majority, right? 10 times worse. And that's why it matters. That's why voting fucking matters, folks. Anyway, jeez. Socialism on roids. I'm going to go grab some sleep before work. Take care, guys. Catch you later. Thank you so much for joining, man. Lewis the Hedgehog, thank you for joining, too. Really appreciate it. What is the opposite of being woke? Being asleep? Yes, it is. It's the opposite of being woke is being a fucking zombie. Right, for sure. Lewis the Hedgehog, they just love to say, just wait until the truth comes out, while being oblivious to how the truth will make themselves look worse. And you know what the worst part of all this is? Nobody ever learns their lesson. That's what American politics is all about, is trying to deflect blame, trying to make your opponents look bad, while at the same time trying to convince the people, your constituents, that only you can save them. And, it sucks, but it's what we got. And you got to work with what we got. I don't see the revolution coming and enacting any systemic change anytime soon, unfortunately. So, anyway, really appreciate you guys. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Lusa Hedgehog, Socialism on Roy. It's good to see you. Dinah Cat, and anybody else who joined throughout. Thank you for sitting here and listening to me bitch and moan about politics for 2 hours. I know this shit can be boring and uninteresting sometimes, but it matters. It matters who's in charge. It matters what the people who are in charge say and do and what their agendas are, because it will affect us. That's just how it works, man. Anyway, it's time for me to show you all my social medias. So first off, I have a Discord now, which those of you who have not been on my Discord yet, I can send out another link. It's still pretty small. I'm only at about 11 people or so, but starting to grow a little bit. So if you guys want to come hang out with me on Discord, please leave a comment or whatever, and I will send you a. Actually, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna put an invite right now. Screw it. So far the invites are only for let's see, invite people. Here's a link. How do I do this? Hidden copy, invite friends, or send a server link to friend. I just want to copy the link. Okay. Here is a link to my Discord if you guys want to join me to Hwanja's House of Deranged Lunacy. So far, I'm just putting up links to my streams and other people's streams that I'm in and that kind of thing, and artwork and stuff like that, and it's a lot of fun. So please come hang out in my Discord. I have let me go ahead and turn on my stuff here. I have here, let's move that over here. This is my DeviantArt website. I put up all of the artwork that we do on the channel eventually up on here. Sometimes I might edit it a little further before we do that. So anyway, come check out my artwork there. This is my Etsy shop. I sell prints and shit like that, comics, that kind of thing. Come, if you like what I do and you want to support me, come buy something. This is my webcomic. It's got ninjas in it. It has talking ducks. It has people getting their heads chopped off, that kind of thing. Come check it out. This is my other channel where I talk about toys and games, mostly toys lately. Been doing a lot of toy unboxings, so please check that out as well. And then, yeah. And thank you, everybody else who joined. Really appreciate you all. You guys are the best. And I will be back here. Probably going to do a stream at around Wednesday. I'm trying to do at least 2 streams a week now, if possible. Unfortunately, I don't always have the time. But if I do, it'll be on Wednesday, and I will put it up on the Discord at least a few hours before we go live if we're going to do it. I want to talk a little bit about there's a guy named fucking Alex Stein who is a total asshole, and we need to talk about him because he's a piece of shit. So I'm thinking of doing a stream on this dude. Anyway, thank you all so much, and I will talk to you all later. Adios.